So you want to start building guitar pedals. Let me give you some advice about the tools that you're going to need, what's needed and what's not, how they work, what they do, and how they do it. My name's Marcus, this is Roots Electro, and you're watching the Friday Finish. So, you want to start building guitar pedals. You've looked on a couple of Facebook groups, you've surfed up and down the gear page, and everybody's got a whole bunch of advice to give you, and none of it makes sense. You can get away with quite a bare minimum, and I'm going to kind of start at that, and I'll probably add a few bits and pieces to it as I go along, but I'll kind of start from the top and just work my way through. If you've never soldered before, I would probably start with just practicing some soldering first of all. Get an iron and some solder and a few bits of wire and just muck about just to start with before you start splashing out on buying other bits and pieces and pedal enclosures and stuff and all sorts of bits and pieces like that. Have a practice so you're kind of ready. Only a few sessions, and then you know really whether you want to commit or not. Yeah. Anyway, what do you need? Well, where do we start? I'll get on to solder and soldering irons at the end of this, really, because that's the kind of most complicated part. But a basic set of tools. You're going to need some sockets, probably 8, 10, 11, 12 and 14 are the essential sizes. It'd be good to get rocket sockets if you want something that's not going to scratch your delicate paint job. You can get them from Fuzz Dog in the UK, and Pepper's Pedals in Australia. He's the guy that makes them. Don't know where to get them in the States. They're like plastic sockets, basically. Personally, I just use really well kept normal sockets like that. I just make sure they're really smooth. They're, if they've got any burrs on them, I'll take them off. A couple of Phillips head screwdrivers and things like that. I don't really need to go into that. Hand tools, as far as things like pliers and snips and things. You're going to want, probably the one thing you're going to need more than anything is a good pair of side cutters. Something like these. I'm a massive Knipex fan. Okay, I'm not endorsed by them. I use loads of them. Okay, I just think they're brilliant. So yeah, pair of side cutters. Now, what are side cutters? You could probably get away with a pair of decent clips, but side cutters make such a neat job. And what it is the bevel is only on one side of the blade. I don't know whether it's going to focus on that. No, it's not. Difficult to know. So you can see that the blade is flush on the back. So when you cut, it is a nice flush cut. Now, why do I rave about Knipex? They just feel amazing in your hand. The blades are really well made, and they're not super expensive. Okay, that pair is probably 20-25 quid, something like that. I paid a lot more for this pair. I won't show you who they're made by, and they annoy the hell out of me. Why? Because they're on the bench, and this might sound like a little thing, but when you pick them up 40-50 times a day, it starts to get annoying. I pick them up and they're always dangling open like that, so I've got to kind of see, there you go, knack around getting them the right way, getting them into my hand. And then because of the profile of them, I've had to mark them so I know which is the cutting side, because you can't see which side does the cutting. Whereas pick these up, they've got an external and an internal stop, so they're always going to be ready to put in your hand, and you know without even thinking about it what side they're going to cut. So, and these were way more expensive than these. Anyhow, what else are you going to need? So clips, some pointy nose, long nose pliers, always really useful to have, because there's going to be bits and pieces you're going to need to get into in tight places. A pair of tweezers. All my tweezers seem to be on the bench at the moment. There we go. Pair of tweezers, just because components are fiddly. Wire strippers. Automatic wire strippers, cannot do without these things. A couple of quid on eBay. To be honest, I don't see any reason why you need to buy anything more expensive at the moment. That's that on those. Okay, drilling enclosures. You don't really, I mean, a pillar drill makes life a lot easier, and if you feel that way inclined and you've got the space and the place to be able to do it, then a pillar drill is a great luxury to have, but it's not super essential. It does make your drill kind of dress very much cleaner. And I've had one since before I set this company up, excuse me, but hand drilling is, you can get away with hand drilling. What I would recommend you get though is a step drill. This is a 4 to 20 millimeter. Okay, they only come in 2 millimeter increments, which is a bit annoying because there are some odd numbers that, if you want to be really slick and you want stuff just to fit perfectly, then you might want to start thinking about getting some odd number sized 9mm for jacks, and I think 7 for pots. So but these are great. The only drawback with these is if you're not concentrating, you can go to the next step and cut a hole 2mm too big, and believe me, 2mm is too big. So yeah, just beware of that. Holding the enclosure down while you're drilling it, it's generally, it will grab as it's about to finish the hole and about to go through. So use sharp drill, don't use blunt drill bits, because you're going to be pushing, you're going to have to push, and suddenly when that goes through, that's when everything kind of jerks. You let go, flipping thing spins and it takes half your finger off. Okay, if you're using really sharp, you can just go through gently and let the bit do the work. Okay, this is aluminium, it won't blunt your bits, so if you buy a set, keep them just for your pedal builds and don't do any DIY with them, and they'll last you for a long time. Okay, and they'll stay sharp and stay safe. Okay, if you're worried, get a benchtop vice, the little engineer's vices with the, I've got one but it's buried, like a clamp, a drill clamp. They make a massive difference to hand drilling. Yeah, and just be safe with that sort of stuff. Measuring it out is a bit of a ball ache, so I tend to use templates. This is a 3D printed one. that it just literally just pops over the enclosure, and I then centre punch it. Make your centre punch hole. Blimey, it's raining. Make your centre punch, and then pilot drill that, and then go in after the pilot drill with your full size bit. Why do it that way? Why not just go straight in? Well, drill bits will creep, and you'll find even a tiny little bit of creeping, it will just look wonky. I've got evidence of that. I'll show you the inside of this pedal one day. This is one of the first pedals I ever built. Look at those foot switches. It's probably only a mil, maybe 1.5 mil, but they just scream. I don't know about you, but they scream at me. It's a horrible pedal. The insides is a disgrace. We will have to start somewhere. So yeah, use something, and yeah, okay, so then people say, well, why not use that for your drill? Why do you have to punch? Well, these are quite soft. Anything you use, that's softer than a drill bit, it's gonna eventually wear down the hole, and that's going to become inaccurate as well. So put this on, punch through, use that punch mark, pilot hole, then drill through. Another good hack, if you haven't got access to a 3D printer, Vero board, okay, circuit board, whatever you like to call it, and you can even solder them together. Okay, so as long as you get a center line, okay, so this drill here is central, so this cut on this side and this cut on this side is equidistant from the middle. As long as you get it centered, that means you've got 2.5 millimeter or 2.54 millimeters spacing for all your holes, and you don't even have to measure stuff up. You can just go, I want a hole there, and just it's Vero board, great little hack. Okay, and that just goes over your enclosure, and then you drill out. So that's groovy. Okay, soldering. I would recommend having a look at some specific soldering YouTube things. There's some great tutorials out there. I'm not going to recommend any because, well, there's just loads of them. But what I would say is, if you're on a budget and you want to, keep things tight, the one thing that I wouldn't skimp on is your solder wire, for the simple reason that you don't know what's in cheap unbranded solder wire, and impurities are what kills the soldering tip. Okay, there could be acids, there could be dirt, all sorts of things in there that will compromise the integrity of your solder joint for a start, and secondly start to oxidize the tip of your soldering iron, and you get into a complete shit show with trying to learn how to solder when the solder isn't reacting how it should. So I would recommend that you start at the top and buy an expensive. It's going to cost you 50 quid for a ball of solder, but it's probably going to last you most of your pedal building time, unless you start building lots and lots of pedals. So I'd recommend you get Kester, Kester solder. There are lots of other brands. This is what I've got my own personal experience with. I'm not endorsed by Kester. They do unleaded and leaded. They do lots of things, but I would recommend for pedals getting the 245 Kester 245 with lead, or they do a lead free, the Kester 275. They're both great. Personally, as a learner, I would actually recommend you get lead solder. Now, there'll be lots of people up in arms about that. The fact of the matter is, unless you eat it, ingest it, wash your hands or after using it, get rid of any tiny little residue on your hands, and you'll be fine. The lead does not go into the air. It's the flux that causes the smoke that you inhale, and it can cause you a problem. And all the fluxes are not very nice. So that's why I've got a fan. I use this for small jobs, and then I've got an extractor that I pull over for larger jobs. It's just an old computer. You can see that AMD computer fan. I've hot glued it to an old enclosure, put a switch on, put a 9-volt DC jack on it, got a power supply on my bench. Job's good, and that'll waft the smoke away and stop it going up your hooter. So that's all you need. So it's the smoke that causes the problems if you're going to be breathing it in ad infinitum. The reason they've done leaded and unleaded was to stop consumer electronics going into landfill. So there's people making thousands and thousands and thousands of tellies a week. Eventually they end up in landfill, and they don't want all that lead being in landfill, and I understand that. But you're not making thousands of tellies, and hopefully your pedal is going to stay with you. So it's not, if it is a concern, use leaded, but unleaded is electronically, it is better. It's much easier for you to learn with. You can reflow it, you can heat it up, and it'll be better used a second time, if you like. Unleaded, you have to remove and start again. Really, it does break down the integrity of the joint, and you have to use higher temperatures. And it is a little bit more stubborn to work with. So only a little bit. Some people love it. So make your choice. But don't skimp on your solder. And buy it from a legit source as well. Don't go on eBay or Amazon or anywhere else like that and go, oh, I want some Kester 275. And oh yeah, look, there's somebody selling 15 meters of it in a little tube. It might well be legit. Chances are it is. But there's plenty of unscrupulous people out there who are going to just print off a Kester label, get a little tube and bung any old bollocks in there. So buy from somewhere legit. Unless you know the person that's, spooling this stuff off. It's expensive, but it will make your journey so much easier. Right. Soldering irons. Well, I don't know where to start on soldering irons really. Well, let's start with the lower end, okay? And I don't mean that as a derogatory thing. Just if you're getting into making pedals, I would suggest that you practice first of all. Don't buy all the kit. Buy a super cheap soldering iron and just practice. And if you think you've got what it takes, then start spending the money on your better soldering iron, some hand tools, some components, a kit, all that stuff. Start with I have a bunch of Sealy. There's a tool company in Europe called Sealy, Sealy. I think they might be American actually. Um, they do an iron for about like 15 quid. It's 40 watts. It's quite powerful. The hand iron. Um, it works really well. It's a little bit heavier. The wand on it is quite long, and the lead is a bit stiff and kind of clunky. So if you're using something 8 hours a day, it starts to get a bit annoying. But for use a few times a month, they're fine, absolutely fine, and you're not out a lot of money. And if you do start getting the bug, then you can think about upgrading to a Hacko or Weller. But I've got one particular brand that I think, or one particular iron that I think is absolutely brilliant. Let me talk about Hacko and Weller first, then we'll get on to the other one. So if you've been on Facebook groups and forums and things, you constantly people are saying, "What's better, Hacko Weller, Hacko Weller, Hacko Weller?" They're both as good as each other. They both have their upside. They both have their downside. Okay, for me, I've got both up there. I don't use them anymore. They're my standbys. So I've got a Hacko FX 888D and a Weller WE 1010. Okay, and these are the two that people fight together. The Hacko, great tool, great piece of kit, lovely in the hand. Doesn't have a standby mode, so you set it on a temperature and it will stay on that temperature all day long and all night if you forget to turn it off. The Weller cuts down by 70%. Okay, after about I think you can set it actually 5-6 minutes, which I think is pretty cool. The Hacko doesn't lose temperature quite as quickly, so when you put the tip on something cold, obviously that sucks a lot of the heat out of the tip, and the Hacko is slightly less sensitive to that, but you wouldn't really notice it if you were just soldering components. You wouldn't notice the difference. Other than that, I think they're about 150 UK pounds. They're both a great iron, both a really good choice. Buy one of those, it will last you all your soldering career. But there's a young upstart. Well, I don't know whether they're young anymore actually. There's a former, so these are all very old style. The Hacko and the Weller are transformer based. Okay, so they have a big transformer and they send all the juice to the tip, and it kind of it heats the arm up that in the handle, and then transfers that by induction or it just heats it up basically by transfers it by I've forgotten. Anyway, and they suffer with losing heat as you put them on something cold, and the temperature does fluctuate a fair amount in those. The Hacko, no, sorry, not the Hacko. Okay, so the Quicko, which is this brand that I'm talking about, takes a tip called a T12 or T15. They've designated them different numbers depending on their world region. Basically, you've got Asia and the West, more or less, US and Europe. And so T12 or T15 the same. You just, if whatever's available to you, as far as the tip type is concerned. And they actually have the heating element in the tip. Okay, so they're so much more quick responding. The heat up times on my Hacko and the Weller, you're talking about 30-35 seconds. Again, not massive. The Quicko, 10 seconds and it's up to temperature. And in between sessions in the day, for me, that's quite a considerable amount of time to lose. The Quicko has got 2 standby modes, so it cuts down to 150, then like down to 30 or something stuff. You can put your hand on it. Again, I've not got any endorses by Quicko. In fact, I wouldn't know where to start. I bought mine on AliExpress. I bought 2. They're 25 quid each. I bought a Hacko tip for it because the tips that come with it are a bit janky, to be honest. So I bought a Hacko tip for about, I think it was about £18. The soldering iron, the soldering iron number is a Quicko, so it's QUICKO, and the soldering iron number is T12952. Now, if you go for search for them, there is a 942 as well. The 942 doesn't have a 24 volt power transformer in it, so you have to power it with an external 24 volt transformer. So don't get that one. Get the one with the transformer, then you can plug it straight into the mains. They're brilliant. Honestly, I've used mine now for nearly a year, and it just hasn't grumbled. Hasn't made a single flip out at all. And it's peanuts. I bought 2 because they were so cheap, and I haven't even unboxed the other one. So I've got more soldering irons than I need, to be honest. So yeah, if you like that big heavy metal kind of thing going on, then brilliant. Get either a Hacko or Weller. Toss a coin, to be honest, between the Hacko or the Weller. But the Quicko for me, T12 format, is absolutely brilliant. That's that on soldering irons. I'm not really going to go into kind of tips as to how to solder and all those sorts. I might do one of those later. But that's kind of it for essentials. There are probably a few other bits and pieces like helping hands and things like that that you could maybe get away with, buying, but it's not super essential. Whatever makes the job easier, really, after that. So anyway, that's me. I'm done. I'm going out tonight, so better get a move on. Thank you so much for listening to my absolute ramble this afternoon. Thank you so much for all the messages I'm getting about these Friday finishes. I'm going to carry on doing them, hopefully with a little bit more planning. This is a bit ad hoc today. My content creation, I'm kind of trying to upgrade it, hence the wreck out there at the moment. I'm just kind of sorting stuff out, and hopefully get to the point where I can produce some better quality. I'm not going to go for super slick, but slightly better quality content than I produce at the moment. Once again, thank you for your support. It means everything to me. Please remember to subscribe and smash that bell button. I need to be saying that at the beginning, don't I? Maybe I'll fit that in. Have a great weekend, folks. I'll see you on the other side on Instagram on Monday for the Monday Minute to tell you what's up and what's happening next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Be nice to each other. And as the guys on 40 Watt podcast say, make some noise. Oh, and remember, keep it fuzzy.